Okay, so welcome everyone to the latest episode of the Talking Balls Snooker Podcast. Comes out every Wednesday. I'm your host, Michael Wright, Writer74 on the PlayStation Gamer Tag, and on Twitter. And I'm also introduced my co-host, who we've met before on the Hayden Stanleyland episode. But Lee, if you want to say hi.
Yeah, hi everyone. Nice to have you here.
Good to have you back, Lee. And of course, our guest, a very special guest tonight. We're recording this on the night of the first day of the British Open as well. So on the Monday night, and it's a Triple Crown winner. It's World Champion 2010, the Thunder from Down Under. It's Neil Robertson.
Hello, guys. Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you, Neil, and thanks for doing this. It's been we're both genuinely chuffed to see you on here and to get the chance to share a bit of time and get to know more about you away from perhaps what we can read on Twitter or Wikipedia, and just give people a chance to get to know you a bit more. So, so thanks for doing this. We haven't seen you really, I guess, around the table, in the arena since the Crucible a few months ago. So I know you've been busy and you've been traveling, but would you tell us more about, what you've been up to the last few months?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that at the end of the World Championships that all the players were going to have a sort of decent amount of time off. So it makes planning the off season much easier. Yeah, there was an opportunity for Miller and I and the kids to head to Norway and Sweden for a few weeks, which was actually really nice. And yeah, before that, the idea was for myself to get into sort of really good physical shape and really sort of hit the ground running when the season would start. But I was playing football with my son, and the grass was pretty wet, and I ended up sort of slipping and tearing my hamstring, which was absolutely brutal, which sort of, put the sort of, getting on the bike and putting some miles in on the bikes and, some really good fitness, put that on the back burner. So, yeah, when you see footballers sort of pull up with a hamstring and you think, oh, surely they could just kind of carry on and run it off. My God, it was unbelievable. It was like the sharpest pain I've ever felt up my leg. And, I was just down in the feeble position for a couple of minutes while my son was actually laughing at me. He thought I was joking. So yeah, it was like ice pack on it straight away and just awful few nights sleep. And then, yeah, it's been gradually getting better, and I've been seeing a physio regularly and stuff. And yeah, I didn't really think it would impact me actually for as long as it has. It's been about 2.5 months now where I'm only just over about 90% sort of recovered from it, and can start finally sort of kicking a ball with him again, which I really love doing, So yeah, so in some ways, I guess I'm lucky that the tournament in Turkey sort of got postponed a bit, so I've got a little bit longer to make sure I'm sharp for the season opener. So, but apart from that, it's just been spending a lot of really good time with Miller and the kids, and preparing for our wedding, which is this Saturday. So yeah, it's been a really nice amount of time off. I don't usually have this long off, but I had a hit a few days ago, and it wasn't too bad. So yeah, I'll sort of start the process of building up the practice, which takes about a week to get into sort of some pretty good form, and then sort of gradually build for the start of the season. Well, for me anyway.
I was wondering that, yeah, how long it takes you to kind of get back into the, when you feel like you've got back in, you got your eye back in.
Yeah, it takes probably about sort of 4 or 5 days, and you start to feel pretty good about your game. And then practice sessions with like Joe Perry or other players, and fitting in with solo practice, and then that's probably about another week and a half, and then you're kind of ready to compete in tournaments properly.
And then I know, Lee, you were interested about the timing of the tournaments, the early tournaments that we've had.
Yeah, the British Open. Yeah, I was just wondering, Neil, obviously the British Open starts today and you've not entered that. Was that due to, maybe getting organised for your wedding, or sort of format of the tournament, or did you just need a break?
I mean, yeah, I think like it clashes with the wedding, right? So I think that if I were to make the semi-finals or something like that, then I'd have to withdraw from the tournament and go to my wedding, and that wouldn't really go down too well with, if I were to beat someone in the quarterfinals and then, the guy gets a walkover in the semis. So, yeah, it was just like we set the date a long time ago. and it just so happened that that this tournament was put on to clash with it. It's a pretty interesting format, must be said. I didn't realize it was only best out of 5, but it's going to make for probably a lot of close matches, which will be exciting to watch. And I'll keep an eye on it, while I've got the sort of, the plans going for the wedding as well. But I'll be interested to see who's playing well early in the season.
So if you're not entered into a tournament, Neil, or you're out of a tournament, do you tend to watch it or do you leave it alone?
Yeah, I don't really sort of watch a great deal of snooker. It depends who's playing. I think if it's a really good match and maybe like a semi-final or final, I'll certainly sort of, catch the second session. But generally speaking, I'm someone who prefers to use that time away from snooker, focusing on kind of other things. I think snooker is one of those weird sports where you can sit down and think, oh yeah, I'll just watch one frame, but all of a sudden something sort of interesting can happen, or it goes close, and then you're watching a decider, and sometimes deciders, they go for 40 minutes, and a couple of hours can just go by, no time really. So
once you get invested in it, you tend to stay with it. Yeah,
exactly. Or someone could go really far in front. You think, oh yeah, it's all over. I'll just watch them win, see how they react. Like maybe it's a bit of a grudge match or something, and maybe you want to see how the other guy, how the two players react, and the other guy makes a fight back. All of a sudden it's the decider, and so it's a great sort of sport to watch from that aspect. And and like I say, there'll be many close matches throughout the week, I'm sure.
Yeah, and a few shocks.
Yeah, definitely. You'd have to say so with the best out of 5s.
Yeah.
Do you like the idea of more of those, Neil, or do you think it should still be the longer format with maybe a little bit difference with the British Open?
Yeah, I mean, is it random draw every round as well?
Yeah, it's like the FA Cup, isn't it?
Yeah, I experienced something like that when I won the Grand Prix the last time. I think it was the last time it was called the Grand Prix under the BBC, when I beat Ronnie in the final. But that was up until the final. It was best out of 5s all the way through, and it was random draw every round. But in that tournament, it was only one table with still the big crowd in Scotland. And so there weren't actually too many upsets in that tournament because it was the one table setup, which is very intimidating for a lot of the middle to lower ranked guys. I'm not too sure how the British Open is set up, but I should imagine there's probably multiple tables there. So I think you're going to see a lot more upsets. And we've gotten used to the best out of 7s with the home nations events and stuff. And a best out of 7 now kind of feels like a best out of 9, years ago. We're kind of used to that. That seems like the normal race these days. Obviously playing in the World Championships, and the UK, I guess, is best out of 11. Is a lot better. You feel as though that your opponent really has to earn the win, rather than best out of 7, a little bit of luck either way, and then the match could be over. But yeah, so best out of 5 is even more cutthroat than that, really. And I should think that whoever wins the first frame of those matches would probably win a high percentage of those matches.
So do you like the best of 7s now, Neil? Obviously, with the best of 9s, you would have an interval. Are you happy to see the interval go and play a best of 7?
Well, funnily enough, a couple of years ago, we experimented in the qualifiers. I think it was for the European Masters, the one that I ended up winning in Austria. And we played best out of 9 qualifiers in that without an interval, and actually felt much better. I feel these days that frames are a lot quicker, players score heavier than what they ever have done. So sometimes you can be 2-all, and the worst thing either player wants is to go out and have a 15-minute break and then have to come back again. So I think with best out of 9s, I think you could quite easily sort of play that to a conclusion, maybe after four frames or something, just have it quickly sort of brushed or something. So I think that that was a great thing that they experimented with, World Snooker, and but they haven't really sort of done it since. But I think the best out of 7s are okay. We are used to it, and especially with how many tournaments we play in. If we were only playing in 6 events a season, 7 events a season like we used to before Barry Hearn came along, best out of 7s would be terrible. But the fact that we're playing, you got your choice of nearly sort of 20 sort of really quality events throughout the season. So sometimes the best out of 7s are quite a nice little, break sometimes from the longer formats where, it's quick fire. Maybe your approach is a little bit different in the matches. And I think it offers a lot of variety for people at home that want to watch quicker matches. Some people like to watch the longer distance matches, and I think it's a really good mix we've got going on the tour at the moment.
Yeah, great.
And you said about the British Open, I think the format, Lee, we've caught a little bit of it today, haven't we? I think the format's 4 tables, isn't it? With 2 kind of inner ones and then 2 outer tables. Is that how they did it?
Yeah. Rob Walker's reporting on the other 2 tables. Or is it the 4 tables? Yeah, well, Rob Walker's, got the tables that aren't being televised. And obviously we're seeing the match tables, and it's 1 game on, sort of roll on, roll off.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing the players looking over at each other when they're not at the table. I like that part of it. And you're robbed a bit, Neil. You're robbed a bit from the point of view that you've got your hamstring injury, so you can't do a John Higgins with his spinning and his cycling and all of that.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, I heard about that. I haven't actually seen him. I heard he's lost like a bit of weight and stuff, and is it's actually good to hear that he's doing that. I think that snooker's not a sport where it's not like football and stuff where sort of your body tells you when it's time to retire. Like with football, someone's like picking up loads of injuries, and by the time they're sort of in their mid-30s, they're ready to hang up their boots. I think with snooker, it almost feels like you can just play forever, really, as long as you're in good physical condition and you've got your weight under control. And maybe John's doing that. Maybe he's he wants to keep playing as long as he can. I think Steve Davis showed that you could play, still play really top competitive snooker into your 50s. So who knows? Like I think that John, Ronnie, and Mark Williams have shown that they were the ones that could still be a dominant force in their 40s. So maybe it's possible in your 50s. Who knows? So I guess that like myself and other younger players are looking at them and keep sort of dragging us along. Like I'm 39, and when you think that Hendry retired, I think when he was like 41 or something like that, it sort of seems crazy to me that I'd hang my queue up in 2 years. So thanks to those guys for everything they've done in throughout the 90s up until now. They're still the flag bearers of the sport, really.
Did you watch any of the snooker today, Neil?
No. Did John Higgins make a 147 or something? He
did.
Yeah?
Very first frame. Just came on the TV, and first frame John made a 147. I think we'll all be booking spinning classes.
I'll tell you what though, if you've just tuned into ITV4 and you've never watched snooker before because you've had this razzmatazz of it's an open draw, it's only a few frames, and that's the first frame you watch of the day, I mean, you're spoiled, aren't you? Because you're going to be thinking, how many more maximums will we see today then? It's just crazy, isn't it? First frame of the whole thing. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and some people who probably don't know too much about snooker will think it's like an easy game as well.
Yeah, I used to do that on a kids' table. I could do that on a big one, surely. Yeah, it's amazing, Maxwell. Lee, I think you wanted to find out more, didn't you? Kind of almost, a bit of background, really.
Yeah, just really, if you would, Neil, would you talk us through how you got introduced to snooker, back in Australia?
My dad used to take myself and my brother to a club where we grew up, and just every Saturday morning we'd be playing like 9-ball or pool on like one of the 9-ball tables with the big pockets, because it was obviously much easier. One of the club was owned by 2 guys, and one of them was selling up his share, and my dad thought it'd be a really good opportunity to do something with us and build something. And he saw how passionate my brother and I were about Q Sports, and my dad's always loved the game as well. And so he took up the other half, and then it was free snooker, pool, and Mars bars and stuff like that after school. All of a sudden my brother and I started playing a lot more, and just a natural progression of entering junior competitions. And my dad used to host a junior tournament every Sunday morning where you get like 20 odd kids sort of turn up, all ages from sort of 8 through to like sort of 16, 17. And my dad used to run like a mixed juniors competition, and I guess the passion for Q Sports started there. And from there it was like natural progression of, junior competitions, amateur competitions, and working your way up like most people do.
Yeah, what was the snooker scene like? When you were becoming professional, was there like good professionals to play, good amateurs to play? What was the scene like in Australia?
Yeah, in Australia back then, like Australia had a very strong amateur scene actually. Like Australians have always done really well in like the World Amateur Championships, like the World IBSFs, all through like the 90s. Probably until like the late sort of 2000s, we always had players competing in like the semi-finals or finals. And obviously I won the World Under 21s in 2003, and Steve Misford won the World IBSF in 2002. So Australia has always had a very good record in the amateur ranks. I think a lot of players probably struggled with the move over to the UK, especially maybe in the 90s, where it's not like today where you got the FaceTime calls and quickly sending emails. Not so much like now a phone call maybe back to your parents would probably cost you like sort of £100 or something like that back then. So I think it's much easier now for overseas players to have a bigger impact. And I guess I was quite lucky when I decided to move over to the UK like properly. I had a couple of goes at it when I was younger, in 98 when I was 16, and again in like 2000, 2001 when I was 18. But I didn't sort of give it the full proper go until 2003 when I could actually live here permanently and practice with really good players. But back home, I played with someone called Brett Rogers, who made about sort of like 8 147s. Playing against me, made 147 one frame. Then I broke off and he had 137 next frame. So Australians, we always had really good amateurs. Like, these guys, they were really good in practice. And the thing that probably held back a lot of Australians is that because we never really saw the players in the flesh. So you just hear stories about, one example was a guy called Andrew Hicks, was a top amateur snooker player in Australia, was one of the best players. And he was another one who got to like semi-finals of World Amateur Championships. And he was playing in the World Under 21s he was playing in. I think it may have been in Iceland, I think, one year. And he was playing a young Welsh player, and who knocked in 3 centuries in a row against him and missed the last black on a 147. So Andrew Hicks came back from that thinking, well, that's just how all the kids are in the UK. They're just all like this. They're all making centuries non-stop. And so a lot of the Australian players would kind of like think, well, if I'm not doing that, then obviously I'm not going to be good enough. But little did we know that the person playing Andrew Hicks was Matthew Stevens. So just these sorts of things. Or, I think one of them would see Ronnie O'Sullivan win the World Under 21s when he was like 15, 16, and just assume that they're not the exception, like there's never been and never will be another Ronnie O'Sullivan. So I think a lot of the players kind of felt that, that it was the UK was just full of that type of talent everywhere, and that you wouldn't have much of a chance. And so it wasn't until, like Eddie Charlton obviously had success, and John Campbell, Warren King, they did okay. Like Quinton had some really good spells over here. But it wasn't really until kind of I broke through and Ding broke through that we kind of sort of ended the sort of like the British dominance of the sport, really. Not like end it, but that we've competed really well. I think myself and Ding have won nearly 40 ranking titles and, many other tournaments between us. And so I think that's really helped other overseas players think that there's hope to live in the UK and make it and all that. Because growing up, I heard all sorts of excuses from, sort of homesickness and stuff like that. And not saying that they weren't genuine, because I've experienced that myself when I was like 19, 20 living in Leicester. But just, seeing someone do it, then it becomes easier for the other people.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting, isn't it? And you kind of, I suppose, with the Ding Academy and a lot of the younger Chinese players coming through now, you can see almost possibly a whole wave of players now from outside the UK who could make a big impact.
Yeah, and we're starting to see that now, especially from China, but also from Europe as well. There's quite a few younger players coming through from Europe, which is really good. And I guess it's up to the UK to kind of, I think the sort of the structure of the grassroots really needs improvement, and probably some kind of funding there as well. I think Jason Ferguson is working tirelessly to try and get as much support as possible, you know, from the government and stuff like that. And, you know, it's been a long sort of, you know, couple of decades of surely but slowly many more sort of snooker clubs closing and stuff, and harder for kids to get access. You know, sometimes now you need to be over a certain age just to practice, you know, which wasn't the case for me. And you know, guys like Ronnie and Higgins and that would have been just playing sort of 6-7 hours a day. We're like, you know, they're 10, 11 years old, you know, without any worries about having to, you know, if they could get into a certain club or not. So, you don't want kids dropping out of school when they're sort of like 12, 13. You know, you want them to, you know, complete an education, and that's very much doable. And you can still practice snooker full time and still get that done, no problem. But there certainly needs to be a bit more support and getting more juniors from the UK playing, because it's really important for snooker to have like a really good mix on the tour. Like now it's almost absolutely perfect, where you got, you know, a lot of really great like players from the UK. You got like, you know, myself, Ding, and many other players around the world all competing for the tournaments and winning them. Which I think really adds a lot of appeal to the sport, where, you know, you're not just seeing two guys from England playing each other all the time in finals and stuff like that. You know, you're seeing the different flags, and, you know, and I like to think that that's inspiring players around the world to give it a go.
Great. And what I'm interested in really, Neil, I wondered on your thoughts on this. Earlier on in the build up to the British Open, I think Judd Trump was interviewed, and he was talking about the world rankings. And I'm wondering on your thoughts on this, because he was talking about the difference between being almost a multiple world champion or consistently winning ranking events and being at the top of the rankings, and almost saying that he feels he's the number one, he's up there, and he could lose his number one spot to Mark Selby depending on results. But I wonder where your thoughts are on this. And I kind of hate to bring it up in a way, you know, we're looking back to 2010 now for the World Championship, but you've clearly been, with all of the titles, the ranking titles, the consistency, you've clearly been in that top group now for quite a while. But people who win the World Championships are the ones who keep getting mentioned. I was saying to Lee earlier with tennis, I don't know who the top four are in that order. I know who they normally are, but I'm not sure what order. But I know that they won Wimbledon. I know that they won the French. All the rest of it. I know the titles they've won, but I don't know where they are in the rankings. It seems the opposite in some ways with snooker.
What do you mean, that the rankings are talked about more than winning major titles? Or?
Well, it sounds like the World Championship. It's everything's about that really. So if you win the world title, people will say, well, they've won the world title more times than that player. So are they the better player? Whereas you might have somebody who's won one or two, but they've been at the top of the rankings for years. Yeah,
I mean, so Judd was saying that, like, perhaps what he's achieved the last couple of years is better than winning a world title in a couple of sort of ranking events. Not necessarily he's been comparing his 18 months to Selby's 18 months, but I guess, you know, when you win like, you know, 5, 6, or he won 6 tournaments. Did he win 4 this season and he won 6 the season before? Was it something like that? So,
yeah, I mean, he certainly won quite a few. He was a multiple winner last season, the season before.
I mean, I would certainly take the multiple tournaments all the time, rather than, you know, like, there's no way I'd trade 3 UKs for like a world title or even 2 UKs. Like, I think that, yeah, a lot of emphasis is put on the World Championships, and, you know, obviously rightly so. But for me, it's a format that can kind of suit a certain style of play. Probably the reason why Ronnie's not won it 10 or 11 times, I think because of how good he is, he's managed to win it 6, but he probably, if it was a shorter format, he probably would have won it maybe 11, even 12 times, really. Is that good? So yeah, it is a bit strange that, you know, I guess because the format is so much longer than all the other tournaments, so it is kind of like the one. But yeah, I mean, I compare it to, you know, to sort of like, you know, tennis tournaments and stuff like that. The different conditions, different surfaces suit different players. For me, I've got a bit of an issue with the World Championship with the length of the format, where I feel as though matches can kind of drag on a bit, and I've been sort of sucker punched into getting bogged down too much and getting involved in sort of longer, scrappier frames, which is my fault, and it happened again this year. Even though I said it wasn't going to happen, you know, Karen still managed to find a way to sort of like drag me through the mud again, like, you know, the second session. He did really well. The last session, he played absolutely brilliant, you know, but I should never have given him that kind of hope. The match should have been, you know, done and dusted by then. So yeah, it is a completely different type of format. You know, every single frame, every kind of session, you got to be there. And yeah, it is strange. I mean, personally, I don't really like the format. I think it's pretty dated, and I think it can be very stale, the World Championships. I think I've never watched a best out of 35 from start to finish ever. And you will never get the general public watching a best out of 35 from start to finish ever. I think that people will watch the final of the Masters, they'll watch the final of the UK. They will dip in and out of the World Championships, but they'll never be engaged in the whole match, you know. Me, myself, I never watched the World Championships. Maybe I might watch a session to see how someone sort of settles. I watch like the last few frames of the tournament, you know, that's always nice to see. And it's good. I'm not one of these guys who kind of just switch it off for the rest of the event when I've been beat. I really appreciate what somebody has done, you know, to win it, and especially Mark, you know, to win it 4 times is absolutely amazing. You know, fantastic guy, you know, brilliant player, just the absolute ultimate professional, and deserves everything he gets out of the game. And it's good to see, you know, guys like that get rewarded. But from an entertainment point of view, the World Championships is a struggle for me to watch, and I'm a top snooker player in the game. You know, I think that, you know, best out of 19s are great. I think the best out of 25s are really intriguing, but you should just cut it off at that. You don't need to play best out of 33s, best out of 35s. For me personally, as a sports fan, I'd never tune in to watch it. I just wouldn't, because it's too long. It's like the equivalent of like an 8-day test match at cricket. It's far too long. It's too long. You know, and you know, how many of the World Championships really go down to the wire? You know, that's what you want. You want these big tournaments where the pressure really matters. Not if someone goes ahead really far in the match and then it's over. Someone goes 6-7 frames in front, pretty much the match is pretty much over, really, unless something dramatic does happen, like in '85 or, you know, something like that, right? With Davis and Taylor. So yeah, you know, you look at Wimbledon, you know, it's best out of 5 sets. Like the tennis final, like it's over pretty quick, but it can be really close still, you know. There's been some epic encounters, obviously, like the Nadal Federer final, you know, many years ago. They went to 5 sets, first time Nadal won it. You know, and even like some of the more recent ones with Federer and Djokovic a couple of years ago, that was amazing. And it was quick, but it was close all the way. And that's what you kind of want with snooker. And I feel as though we are going to lose a lot of potential fans from the sport unless we kind of change it up. I know Barry will never change the World Championships, that's what he says, but I feel as though the UK Championship has benefited a lot from going from best out of 17s to best out of 11s. You know, the players have adjusted. We're not too concerned about playing these long formats anymore. You know, we just want to play the matches, entertain people to see good entertainment quickly, because that's how the world is changing. You know, that's why test cricket is really struggling, unless it's like the Ashes. Nobody kind of really wants to watch, you know, 5-day test match. They want to see the 1-days or the 2020s. And I feel as though Barry has done an awful lot to change many aspects of formats. He's brought in like the shootout, the British Open's best out of 5. But I feel as though we're kind of the World Championships, I feel as though is dated, and maybe he's just a bit worried about damaging you know, the legacy of that event being so long. But me as a player playing it, I don't enjoy playing a best out of 33 or best out of 35. I want to get to like the last day. You know, I don't care if we're tied for going into the last session. I don't care, or going into the last 4 frames of the match, we're even. That's what I want to have a go at. I don't want to like, yeah, we've got to play this session. Nothing's really going to happen. Second sessions, nothing's really going to happen. Last session, if you're close, then you can kind of feel as though you can really attack it, you know. That's me personally, and it's probably let me down, where I've probably lost a bit of focus at some point during some matches, and that's on me. So I need to change that while this event is as long as it is. I need to adjust to that. So yeah, I'd love it to be a shorter format. I probably would run it a few more times since I have done. But you know, it's up to me to kind of change that with the format that it currently is in.
So do you find it quite difficult, Neil, to get up for the game, you know, in the long sessions? You know, as you're saying, if it's maybe level going into the last session, are you really up for the game then? But before that, maybe you're struggling to get up for it?
Yeah, it's a really good point. Like, I mean, this year's World Championship, like going into the last session with Karen, we were 8-all. You know, I should have been out of sight by then, but I was really looking forward to it. You know, I was really like, yeah, you know, and I could sense that Karen was as well. He played absolutely amazing. I had a pretty bad run of the ball, it must be said, but he played it absolutely incredible. And like, well done to him. That's great. And I kind of, even though I kind of got smashed really, I kind of enjoyed that part of the match more than the other two sessions. Because I think it's, I don't know, as a player, it's kind of boring. You're not shaking the guy's hand to saying well played or bad luck. You're kind of, yep, we're going to continue this 4 hours later. And then we're going to continue it the next day. And sometimes you play best out of 25 over 3 days. It doesn't really feel like you're playing a match. Like you're playing 3 best out of 9s at that point. It's kind of how it feels. I don't know how other players feel about the event. I know that Ronnie has I think he said he preferred if the World Championship was just best out of 19 all the way through, But I think best out of 19s, up until maybe the quarters, and then you got best out of 25s all the way through. I think that would make for a much more entertaining World Championship, but that's my opinion. And, as a sports fan, seeing, I love so many sports and I watch and see how they all evolve. The ones that are surviving the longest are the ones that aren't afraid to kind of make little adjustments here or there.
I can relate to what you're saying, with the final of the World Championship. I mean, I tend not to watch the Sunday, and I come back on the Monday to see it finishing, because it's a sort of dead area, the Sunday, they're just jockeying for position.
Yeah, that's right. And also, I think that like you're playing a best out of 33 and then you're straight back out there again, the next day. I feel as though there should almost be like a day's break, really. I think it's, you're playing the semi-finals is actually like you play that over more days than what you do the final, which is just crazy. It's too much. Yeah. It's just too much. I know it's like a war of attrition, and Selby's just the absolute master of it. That format, he's just incredible. He's so good. He holds his concentration so long, and the longer a frame goes, the more it hurts you for the rest of the session. So you're under that kind of pressure to like, well, I don't want to get involved in these long frames, but at the same time, you don't want to just throw frames away. And he's the master of that format. He's won everything else in the game as well, so he's won, he won 2 other tournaments, going into the World Championships as well. So he's just a brilliant all-round player, but over that distance, he's probably like, the master really.
So going back to what you're saying about Selby, you don't want to get embroiled in these long frames, and he's quite happy to do that. So does that put a little bit of pressure on people's game to maybe take the frame out in one visit?
Yeah, but not many players are capable of forcing that. I think that probably myself, Judd, maybe Sean, when he's really disciplined with his shot selection, is capable of kind of taking the game away from Selby, and Ronnie obviously as well. But, Mark is also a fantastic scorer when he gets in. So you don't just want to give him chances, but I feel as though, and I had that approach this season. I beat him all 4 times we played this season. Was that I'd much rather lose quickly than lose the way I did in the World Championship against him, where we played, goodness me, I think the first frame went for over an hour in that quarterfinal a couple of years ago, and he just sort of took me apart tactically. And I'm really good tactically as well. I can sort of see the danger coming as well. But then, a few times I went back to my seat and I was thinking, oh no, he's got me here. Like he's out tactically out fought me, it doesn't happen. And he never misses a trick. Sometimes you can go back to your seat as a player and you think, geez, if this was Selby, I'd be in so much trouble. And then they would let you off. They wouldn't play a good safety shot. They'd leave you an easy return. Selby doesn't do that. He's just like, he's always like, with the chess pieces, just always like one step ahead. Tactically never makes a mistake. And I admire that as a player. I love watching close frames when it's like maybe a decider in a match or something. Like the long frames, almost like the longer the frame goes, the better in a decider, because it's really twitchy and the ball's on cushions, and most likely it'll go down to like the pink or black or something. Kind of like mine and Judd's decider in the UK. Went for a long time that decider, but it was just like swung one way, then the next, and then he's coming out of a snooker fluking a snooker. I'm coming out of a snooker fluking it back. It was just like it's crazy. Like everyone loves to see all the big breaks and the quick frames, but snooker also has that part of it where it can create a lot of drama as well, especially in the deciders. So I guess kind of like the perfect matches for it to be all guns blazing up until like the really sort of important part of a match, and then it gets really close and twitchy. So it doesn't always pan out like that, and I think that's probably one issue that the sport has, is that sometimes that can happen too early in a match, and then people can lose interest when they're watching at home.
Yeah, and as good as you guys are, it's nice to see you twitching, you know. And on the side of the frame, it makes us guys sitting at home, you know, feel a lot better. You guys are twitching.
Yeah, it's like any time when a sport is got the ball when it's stationary. That's when psychologically you can think about all the things that could go wrong. You know, we saw it in the Euros with like the penalty shootout in the final. You see it with golf, stationary ball sport again, and you see it with snooker. There aren't too many sports like that where the players got all the time in the world to mess it up, and 10 seconds can seem like 10 minutes. I think that what I find quite intriguing with footballers is that they can be absolutely amazing when the ball's in play, but then when it's time to step up and take a penalty, they can be absolutely atrocious at it because they're taken out of their comfort zone. They don't get to. It's not reactionary. It's all the time in the world, to make the mistake. And I think that probably snooker doesn't get appreciated as much for that, for the guys that are really good under pressure, sort of, being able to stand up to that time and time again.
I think as well, you talk about the Crucible, and I think I read something that Phil Haig put in about, was it about the space around you at the Crucible with the Kyron Wilson game? I think there was something about the tightness of some of the shots.
Yeah, I think Hector Nunn asked me about that, because there was one shot I actually couldn't play. I actually couldn't play a shot because where you put your drinks, like that sort of round-shaped table, is right in the corner of the yellow pocket. And someone who's quite tall, if it's at a certain angle, you actually can't get down and play the shot without your leg, or you're actually sitting on the edge of the thing. Feels like playing my friend back in Australia who had his snooker table in the garage, and he would give me like a smaller cue to play a safety shot. He'd put me up there all the time in the corner of the table. And Judd Trump was playing Shaw Murphy, and same thing happened to him. He actually refused a shot because he couldn't get down and play it. And wow. Yeah, that's where the Crucible's pretty terrible, really. It's not it's an amazing place to play once when you're in the semi-final stage. I haven't been there for a few years, but it's amazing. It's one of the best venues you could ever play at. But when it's that small, compact environment, you can hear the other balls and everything going on a few feet away from you on the other table. It's not a great venue to actually play it from a player's point of view, even though you appreciate all the history that's gone on there. I think that I wouldn't mind seeing maybe a change in the venue, and then maybe bring it back for the semi-finals and final at the Crucible. Again, I can't really sort of see that happening, but that's probably something I'd look to do, because playing it's not great when you're that tight. I think I used to have like a longer walk into my shot like quite a few years ago, and the amount of times that my heel would always hit the dividing wall or hit the wall that's separating like the crowd and the players was incredible. And so I had to kind of sort of adjust that. Which is, again, probably only an issue for like the really like the taller guys on the tour, but you shouldn't really have that kind of problem.
Yeah, it's almost going back to your cricket analogy, like a bowler, only having so far they can run up or something, you
got to run up like a spinner. Yeah, exactly. Still expect to bowl at 90 mile an hour.
Yeah. And even again, back to the cricket, the thing around this formats of the sports. I mean, T20, I watch it here in Nottingham. It's fantastic, but they've even got shorter than that now with the 100. So
yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you just think everything's getting quicker, isn't it? You almost want instant gratification, really. Let's see it and let's watch it and go home.
Yeah, because I mean, we've got so many channels on TV as well, and people are just surfing, changing, all the time. You can watch multiple football matches at the same time. Like, I'm even guilty of it myself sometimes when, the Champions League is on and you get to choose which match you're going to watch, and, that one's 0-0, not much is happening. Let's go to that one. Only watch it for a couple of minutes where, so yeah, we are, even though whether we like it or not, we are becoming more impatient, and, we want the entertainment now. There's less excitement for the actual build up to the event. We just want to see it happen. So I think that's just how we are as human beings, how we're going now with all the entertainment, everything, all accessed in an instant on our phone or on our tablets, computer, or on the TV. That's just how it is. And we need to adjust. And I think snooker is adjusting pretty well. We're just going to keep making the right adjustments, and I think we've been able to do that so far.
And just to think about, you mentioned there about a few other players, Selby in particular, and maybe you don't need to worry about this as much because you're at the top of the tree. But how much you said about football? I like the football as well, but you obviously do a bit of research on the other team, how they line up, what their formation is, who the players are to watch out for, the way they move the ball around. How much do you do of that in snooker? And I know, Lee, I'm not a player properly. I mean, I can, I can just wave a cue, but you've played at a level as such. I mean, how much do you do in terms of understanding somebody else's game when you're going to play them? I guess you play enough that you know most of them by now anyway, unless a new player comes on the scene.
Yeah, there's not really any surprises anymore with certain matchups, unless two people are matched with each other that haven't seen a lot of each other. Only two players coming through the ranks or something. But yeah, I mean, that was the reason why I never really used to like playing with many players. Maybe I'd practice with Joe Perry, Mark King, Matthew Selt. I wouldn't really play with too many other players because I wouldn't want the whole of the top sort of 20 or 30 knowing what I'm all about, maybe which shots I do favor or don't favor. But now, every match is televised more or less, and anyone can go onto YouTube and watch a match if they want to do the research. And there's certainly a lot you can do. You can see if, certain players, how good they are at long potting off the cushion, how they are on the wrong side of the table when they're stretching, playing a shot as a left-hander. It would be for playing a shot as you see it down on the table from right to left. A lot of players cue across that type of shot as a right-hander from left to right. You can break off a certain side if you think they favor a certain side where they like swinging the cue ball around one way and maybe not the other. So you try and favor leaving them long pots on the weaker side. These sorts of things, but that takes. I almost spend more time put into my snooker away from the table than I do on it. Whereas, I like to sort of watch my own matches back, see where I can make sort of certain improvements. Sometimes you can finish a match and you think, geez, I didn't really do much wrong there. Then you watch it back on YouTube and you see the little mistakes and the little things you can improve on. And I think that's really important to do, I know footballers, cricketers, they're given like a little, it used to be a DVD or given like a USB of their personal performance and how they did and where things that they could improve on. And that was years before, sort of, I think probably snooker players started. Because when I first came through and started my first matches on TV, I would always ask for the videotape and always be a bit of a pain for the BBC or whoever to go into the van and, get me one of the tapes or something. But I'd always want to get it, watch it back and see what I could improve on, for the next time. And that's been something I've done throughout my whole career. I've probably put less time in physically on the table than probably nearly all the current top 16, but I guarantee you I've put in as much as anyone else for sure, because I'm at the stage now when I practice after a couple hours solo, I get small, like the diminishing returns are crazy. I'm working at trying to improve like 0.5%, like if that, And so I feel as though that time is better spent away from the table, whether it be working on sort of like, fitness or, researching your matches, making sure you're nice and relaxed or whatever, not over practicing before events. I think that's really important too. And I've learned that from watching other sports and hearing how other athletes go about competing.
It sounds like you get a lot from other sports, and I know you obviously follow Chelsea quite closely. You're a big Chelsea fan.
Yes.
And I guess Cambridge being the local side as well.
Yeah, we're doing well. League One.
Yeah, promoted last season. Yeah. Do you go much? I mean, we did get a question about that actually. I can give the old question here and there. I think John McBride and we had a few others, M. Davies, who's a few people on Twitter asking some questions. I think John was asking whether you get to Chelsea much.
Yeah, I used to quite a lot actually. When I met John Terry, I went to Cobham Training Ground to watch the guys train. That was in 2013. I think it was, 2013, just before I won the UK actually. And then, so I met John and he said, anytime you need tickets, just let me know. And and so I let him know quite a lot. And especially when I won the UK, I was going, it felt like I was going nearly every week actually. So I used to go quite a lot. Not so much these days. I mean, the last 18 months for obvious reasons, but prior to that,
Mm.
my son's really keen on his footy. And so, I'd never sort of put watching Chelsea ahead of, watching one of his matches. So yeah, I still go, but the opportunity is less. And it also depends on how you go. Like, I've had one season when I was playing snooker where I probably went to like sort of maybe 6 or 7 games where, every time I happened to be home, they would have a home match. And then the next season playing snooker, every time I happened to be home, there was like an away match at Newcastle or something like that. So, never really got to the games. So it all just depends on when how the calendar falls and stuff like that. But I always watch all the games wherever I can, anywhere I am in the world. And champions of Europe won the Super Cup, and started strong on the weekend as well. And Cambridge doing really well too, which is great to see. The whole city's been buzzing about them getting promotion to League One, and got a really good young manager there. And I guess I got kind of 2 teams. I guess you always got to support like the local team, right? But I've been supporting Chelsea, since like 2000, 2001.
Right. And John, do you know him quite well then, John Terry? Is he someone you count as a mate?
Pretty well. Like, we talk pretty often and that. And he's been fantastic. Whenever I got a bit of, want a bit of advice with like Alexander and his football, he responds straight away. And
Cool.
I mean, Matt Selt knows him better than me. Matt plays him at golf quite a lot, and Matt keeps texting me, goes, ask JT who got the cash today. And so Matt's pretty handy at golf. And he knows John really well too, and plays golf with him quite a lot.
Oh, that's nice. And Alexander, your son, isn't he? So
yes.
Is he a goalie, is he?
Yeah, he plays in goal. Yeah, he experimented with a few different positions when he was younger, and wasn't until we were in the back garden and I was just like firing shots at him, and he got so much enjoyment from watching me not score that I thought, okay, that's just he'll get up and sort of mock me and taunt me and stuff, and you're not going to score. So ever since then he's become really interested in it, and he's part of the setup at Cambridge as well. He's doing really well. Right. He's played some games for them, and a few months ago he went up to Norwich and played against a couple of the Norwich teams there, and cool. One of the Chelsea teams was up there as well, and he did it. He was brilliant in those matches. I was really, really, really proud of him, and I get more nervous watching him than I ever have at snooker. It's terrible. It's great and terrible at the same time.
Well, you need someone like Petr Cech, don't you? One of the Chelsea legend goalkeepers to spend a bit of time with him. That'd be nice.
Yeah, that'd be handy. Yeah.
Lee, I think you were just almost the last bit about the game before we maybe go into a bit more about you away from the game, Neil, if you would. But I think, Lee, you were interested. There was a particular season that stood out for you, and you were quite interested to know more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I love watching century breaks, Neil. And back in 2013-14, you made 103 in the season. And it always fascinates me, because when I see you miss a century, you're on 90 and maybe you'll miss one, you're always really hard on yourself. And that always reminded me, it was quite Hendry-esque. He was always tough on himself as well when he missed one. Is that something you pride yourself on, is your century breaks?
Yeah, even in practice, I hate it when I miss on 90 or don't, for whatever reason, clear up the colours, like maybe land wrong side of the blue and end up missing the pink. I'm furious with myself. I just like making them. It's, I don't know, like probably compared to like a striker in football who's, maybe they've scored 1 or 2 in the match and they've already won, but then they miss and they're still furious, that they miss it. And I don't know, I guess that's just something where you always try and chase perfection. And I think that when you're playing in tournaments, when you got like, you got crowds there, they love seeing the century being made as well. And especially now, I think whenever we make centuries in the tournament, it always contributes towards like a donation to a charity and stuff. So it's quite important to make them. I think, often when we reach a certain target of centuries in a tournament, one of the sponsors will contribute like an extra £10,000 towards a charity. So it can be a pretty big deal. And I really, I don't know, I just like making big breaks. I get the most fun out of that. And I think last season was actually probably better than making, even though I was the first player to make 100 centuries, and I'll be really proud of that. I think beating the record of the most centuries per frame last season by like a long way, it was kind of crazy, the percentage of, the frames to century ratio. Because obviously I couldn't play in all the events and stuff like that. And You know, so in some ways, kind of more proud of last season's ratio of centuries than what I was being the first player to make 100 centuries. But I mean, being the first player, like, that will never get done again, right? If you're the first player to make the 100 centuries, you are like the first. And I'll always look back on that moment with a tremendous amount of pride, for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. And on the flip side of that, do you enjoy safety battle?
I do enjoy a safety battle. Yeah, I mean, it depends what kind of safety battle it is. I think that, you know, when you're playing Ronnie and you're having a little bit of a safety battle, you're being it's aggressive safety against aggressive safety. It's like, who can force the error the quickest. Some Mark Selby can do that also. But with Mark, it's about, like, sometimes it can be about the patience and that, and just keeping the concentration, where sometimes, you know, him or maybe Higgins or Ken Doherty at his best, they're waiting for that slight safety error to then put you on the wrong side of the table, open the balls up, and then, like, you come to the table and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do here? You know, so you have to enjoy those parts of the game, or else you're not going to be, you know, successful for a sustained period of time. You know, you might win maybe the odd tournament here or there if you avoid certain players, you know, like that. But, you know, to be like a great player, you have to be able to win, you know, all sorts of different ways. And, you know, I know Ronnie wins a lot of frames really quickly, matches quickly, but, you know, safety wise, he's up there with the greatest of all time as well.
And you mentioned the fans there, Neil, and obviously last year was a weird one, wasn't it? You know, we all know why, and probably not dwelling on why, but I mean, it's nice to have it back, I guess. But I mean, how did you cope with that? You know, are you someone who turns it on more when there's more to feedback from? How was it doing the whole Milton Keynes experience and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, when I first experienced it, I thought, oh, this is horrendous. I think I played Steve Maguire in the Tour Championship, and I think World Snooker weren't really too sure how to set up the venues for no crowds, and so, you know, it's just one table. It was like this big black curtain just pulled around the table, and it was just like, oh, like, you know, just like in this massive arena, and you just like myself, Maguire, the referee, and that's it. And you're just hearing the balls. You know, you're not hearing any kind of rumbling from the crowd, and it felt like sort of practicing at a snooker club before any customers have got in or anything. And so I didn't really enjoy that too much, but I thought, well, potentially we're going to have to play the season on this, so you're going to have to make the most of it. And also what made it easier is that the fact that we were still able to compete, and, you know, when many people at home, you know, were unable to work on furlough and stuff like that. So then I had to sort of, I think we all had to see, you know, the bigger picture very, very quickly. And I think that all the snooker players on the tour actually did really well. You know, we embraced it as well as we could. World Snooker started setting up the venues to be really good for the players as well, to make us feel as though we were part of something. I think, you know, look at like the way that like all the tournaments were set up, like, you know, the champions in particular, like they just did an amazing job with that. You know, it almost felt like it didn't matter that there wasn't a crowd there. It was set up that good, you know. And, you know, the UK Championships was brilliant, and, you know, lots of tournaments like the Tour Championships. So World Snooker, like, they did such an amazing job throughout the season. For one, like, for putting as many tournaments as they did on for us. We're still able to compete for like really good levels of prize money as well. So yeah, just very, very privileged to be a part of snooker, really. And it's fantastic to see that, you know, the sport's so well run. You know, all the work that, you know, Jason, Barry, and, you know, Nigel, all the people behind the scenes do an incredible job. And I think Simon Brownwell as well, and Neil Tompkins, from a mental health point of view with the players, always calling the players, making sure they're okay. Right. Any issues whatsoever, like, players could come to them. Yeah, it was just brilliant, and it was really sort of, you know, felt really proud to kind of be a part of, you know, the World Snooker Tour, where, you know, it must be said, before, when Barry kind of came along, it didn't really feel like that. You know, it didn't really feel like a great connection between the people sort of running the sport and the players, where, you know, for me now, it never feels as though it's been closer than what it is now, which was just fantastic.
That's great. Yeah, it's good to hear. And I think, you know, some other guys we've had on have echoed that, really. And I think they found it easier when they've been able to travel home after the games from Milton Keynes, which I guess
Yeah,
probably
I
was
was one of
easier
them.
for you in Cambridge.
Yeah. When it was Milton Keynes as the chosen venue for most of the tournaments, I was like, oh, beautiful. It's like 45 minutes away from me. And I was thinking, yeah, I'll play my match and then, yeah, I'll go home, sleep in my own bed and stuff. And it was quite funny actually, because I think myself, Judd, I think that like, we get along really well with the other players, but we don't kind of mix maybe as much as some of the others.
Right.
And like Joe Perry loves to kind of be in the players' lounge, joking around, and with a few of the other boys and that. And then the fact that we have to be in our own little bubbles in our room. And I think for Judd, he copes with that sort of pretty well. And me, I just like take my gaming laptop and download loads of Netflix on the iPad. And with Penelope being so young, it was kind of a nice little break for me to catch up on some sleep at times as well. And so Joe goes, this is such an unfair advantage for you. You're happy in this environment. I can't stand it. And it was actually really funny to see it from the other side, where some players really like to mix. They can't sit in their rooms; they're stirring away. And with me, I don't mind being in either environment, like sort of having a joke with the boys, or I don't mind being by myself either. So I think probably why you see like myself and Judd quite good records when we go to China, because you have to kind of be in that environment, right? Where you wake up at 3 a.m. and there's obviously no one else awake and stuff like that. So it was kind of interesting to see who actually who adjusted well to the season. And I think apart from you would have to say Jordan Brown beating Ronnie in the final of the Welsh, there weren't really too many upsets. I thought there was going to be much more upsets than what there actually were, but I think that that was one of the most intriguing parts of the season. Actually, I thought there'd be much more sort of winners from outside the top 20. I don't know what you guys felt, but I was quite surprised. But I guess it just goes to show that the best players will always still find a way to adapt.
Bit like away wins in football, isn't it? I think last season
exactly.
in the Premier League was the record for away wins.
That was what I was kind of expecting to see. That's what I was expecting to see, more of the upsets where. Last year in the Premier League, it's like it was almost a disadvantage to be at home for some sort of crazy reason, and West Ham are notorious for their fans with how much they get on the back of their own team for not playing well. So it'd be interesting to see how they do this year with their own support, and it's interesting actually, but it's just great to see just on the weekend, full stadiums for the crowd, and can't wait to get back out there as a player on the snooker table as well to play in front of like the big crowds as well.
Yeah, just going away a little bit from the table. I mean, we'll do a little bit of this before we perhaps move on to the questions, because with your following, we had a lot of people wanting to ask you stuff. So in terms of your family, I mean, obviously, I spoke to Michael Holt the other week, and this one's coming out on Wednesday. It will have been out before people hear this one. But he talked a little bit about how fatherhood's changed him, about being a family man. And he sounded very mellow, really. He sounded like he's almost got a refreshed view on how he approaches his game now as a dad, because he's got different priorities. Has fatherhood changed you at all? I mean, how do you think about it now?
I mean, I think, before I was a dad, and well, even just like when I was single, I'd live with, Vinny Calabrese used to stay at my apartment, who would be playing on the Challenge Tour and stuff. And, we'd kind of just go to bed whenever we wanted, stay out, watch movies, and get up whenever we wanted, because the club was only like literally like a, 15-minute walk away. So it didn't matter what time we got to the club, because we could practice as long as we wanted. We didn't have any to pick up any kids from school, or I guess that's the sort of advantages of being, single young sort of snooker players, that, you kind of got the freedom to practice whenever you want. And then, that completely gets turned on its head once you become a dad, that's for sure. There's no more long sleep-ins and just, sort of go to bed whenever you want and go to club whenever you want. You got to become far more structured. And I think that really helped me a lot, actually. Like I struggled with it actually for the first, when Alexander was born, I won the world title 2 weeks before. And that season, I remember winning it was the Grand Prix, but it got the name changed to like the World Open. Even though it was like the Grand Prix, same Grand Prix trophy, they changed it to World Open to try and kind of keep the event, I think, on the BBC, right? Because I think BBC were keen to reduce to 3 tournaments, and we still had 4. So Barry changed it to best out of 5, new format to try and keep it. But I remember playing in that, and I beat Ronnie in the final. And it was like almost like, oh, I can like, all right, I don't know, I've being world champion. One thing you want to do is like, well, first time world champion, you want to make sure that like you win a tournament that season, so you weren't like considered a flop. So I did that, and like I just kind of like every challenge tour, were they called challenge tour events back then? It was like the introduction of like 12 of those small events, like the PTCs. Is that what? Yeah, the PTCs is what they were called. Yeah, I didn't really go to any of those with any kind of hope of winning them. I was just thinking that's a weekend away of sleep. I get to go to sleep, like, you know. Yeah, it was so that was a big shock to me, being a dad for the first time. And I know a few other close friends, are like guys, you know, players on tour, have also, yeah, I think like Matt talked about it with me as well, because Matt was like one of those guys, like, you know, free reign to just do what you want with your own time, and you know, it really changes you. But I think, you know, the first year is really tough, but then it becomes easier. You get used to the routine, the structure, and everything. And then well, for me, it made me far more rounded, and certainly much more professional. And then it gets to the stage where, you know, they become sort of like maybe 2 or 3 years old. And then, you know, you look at like past champions, like, you know, Alex Higgins when he won it, and his daughter was there, and, you know, you've seen Hendry like with his kids when he won it in '99, you know, and you see some of the other players who've won it and, like, you know, bring their kids up. All of a sudden you think, oh, I'd love to have that moment, you know. And so when I won the Masters for the in 2012 and had Alexander there, that was just absolutely amazing. But then Penelope came along. I was like, oh, well, I've got to win a tournament like with her there now as well. So, you know, and then, you know, I won the champions with that unbelievable match with Judd, you know, that 10-9. And I had Alexander and Penelope there with Miller, just like absolutely perfect. And someone's actually done an oil painting of it downstairs, actually, which actually they just gave me a couple of days ago, which is amazing. And so, yeah, just to have those kind of moments. And I think Mark King, when he won the Irish Open, yeah, he went so long in his career without winning a tournament, and he's seen other players do that, you know, have their kids there and that. And I was so happy for Mark, like, for one, you know, known him for such a long time. Him and his dad were brilliant with me when I first came over here, you know, taking me to, like, you know, just like Chinese restaurants, helping me settle in and feel part of the tour, where I think overseas players were more kind of not treated badly, but just like not really kind of felt welcomed, I suppose, as part of the tour. As Mark was brilliant with me, and Matt Selt as well. So watching Mark win that, and then at the end when he won it, he said he's seen for so many years, he said he's seen other players kind of, you know, with their families when they've won something, and he said he never thought he would have that moment. And then to have that, obviously, with you know, Sally and the kids, it was brilliant. I was so happy for him. And I guess that's what probably the best part is about, you know, having a family, is that you get to share, you know, those moments with them, and you hope that can kind of lead to them maybe being inspired to do something, whatever they want to do in their lives as well. And that goes for all the people watching at home, young kids or whatever. It's important to kind of try and be that role model and try to inspire.
Yeah, that's, it's, as you say, inspirational. It's a great thing for Alexander to say at school, isn't it? You know, if anyone else
Yeah.
dad is, so that parents' evening must be cool.
Yeah, well, actually, for his he's starting secondary college this year, and we had a Zoom meeting with the teacher. It was like a parent a parent son kind of interview, where I met one of the head people of like one of his classes, and the teacher absolutely freaked out when he seen it was me. Because somebody wrote down on the sheet that I'm a big fan of snooker. And so, and as the guy's reading it through, oh yes, Mr. Robertson, I see you're there's a, and oh, you're a big fan of snooker. And he's sort of looking, and I think like I've got like some of my like frames and stuff for some of the trophies in the background there. And he's like, oh yes, I can see you are a big fan of yeah, it's so funny. It was absolutely hilarious. Wow. And Alexander was actually really nervous before talking to him, but that made it just so easy. So yeah, I guess it does have its positives for sure.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant story, isn't it? It's yeah. So is he getting better grades now from the teacher who likes you?
Well, I hope he does. He hasn't started yet. He starts in start of September, doesn't he? But Yeah, no, he's been doing good at school and stuff like that. He's yeah, he randomly asked he wanted like a maths book on algebra and about sort of matter or something like physics. I was like, what? Where does this come from? You started watching Big Bang Theory or something.
Oh wow, it's nice that you've seen that that's helped you in a way, because you needed more, that gave you more structure and a more discipline perhaps, whereas you know, you sometimes think, why have certain players almost tailed off if they got older? Because as you say, if you stay fit,
yeah, for sure,
and your eyes are okay, then why not carry on? But you know, is it more desire? Is it more about other things, and your life gets busier and there's other things you could do? You know, is it desire that keeps you at the top once you get older?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for me, it's an intriguing position because I'm from Australia, so I'm kind of always thinking in the back of my mind, like, what am I going to do when I do actually retire? Am I going to move back home to Australia? You know, stay here. Obviously, my family's really well settled here, and like, you know, with the kids and everything. But on the same token, like when I came over here in 2003, you know, everyone I knew back home in Australia, like my parents, all my other family members, are all like kind of, you know, like 18 years older now, and you know, so it's a really tough one for me where I don't really know what to do, and like I try to get back home as often as possible. At the moment, it's actually no one can actually get into Australia at the moment. Yeah, it's an entirely different sort of position for me. I think, you know, maybe Ding will probably have to deal with it, even though quite a lot of the tour is in China. Well, normally, and hopefully we get back to that. Yeah, I think that you need to find different ways of motivating yourself to kind of keep going every season to, you know, to try and become better. You know, when I was like 20, 21 years old, it was very easy to find, you know, big improvements in my game that I could make. Whereas now it's very little, you know, talking about like the diminishing returns of the practice. You don't get as much out of it anymore. So that's why, you know, focus on the things outside of the table to prolong your career, I think, is really important. And, you know, while I'm still able to play at such a high level, I really enjoy it. And, you know, winning the tournaments and stuff like that, I'd love to kind of keep, you know, winning more titles, more UKs, more Masters, more Worlds, more, just more tournaments, you know, because I think, you know, like, you know, all the other players aren't looking like slowing down anytime soon. I mean, my ultimate goal a few years ago was to get to 20 ranking titles, and now I've done that. So now I need to reassess, and now I need to, you know, like Judd's not slowing down anytime soon, and like and Selby keeps winning, and you know, so it's like these guys are like, we're all kind of like pushing each other all the time in the same way that, you know, Williams, Higgins, and Ronnie did. So it's great to kind of be in that kind of bunch of, you know, great players that we're all kind of pushing each other on, you know, to become better players. And I think the tour is much better to play in now, where you can pick and choose your events much more. Whereas maybe players retired a little bit too early, or they kind of lost a bit of interest in the game when we only had sort of 6-7 tournaments to play in, where you're playing a tournament and all of a sudden you got a 3-month gap. You know, it's really hard to practice when you got like a 3-month gap during a season. You know, you kind of like, you know, you got no income coming in for 3 months, and you know, so I think that a lot of players maybe will think, well, this isn't a viable income choice for me anymore, really. You know, because if you look at it, you know, an event, a season where you got 6-7 tournaments, you know, you're probably only going to have maybe 4 or 5 winners throughout an entire season, and not a lot else to go down. Like the prize money didn't really taper off very well back then either, whereas now, you know, you have good earning opportunities sort of all the way through, as long as you're winning matches. So I think now you'll probably see players play, you know, well into their 50s if they want to. I mean, you know, Jimmy White is, how's Jimmy now? Is he almost 60 now, Jimmy?
59.
Yeah, so, you know, he still loves playing. You know, he still loves playing, and you know, he's an inspiration for a lot of other older players who probably in their mid 40s, late 40s, who are thinking like hanging up, and then seeing Jimmy, you know, still knocking in centuries and stuff, and you know, they just want to keep playing. So yeah, I think the game's in such a healthy state now that you can play, and I think that players are still enjoying playing a lot more than probably what they used to as well.
And when you do hang up your cue and retire, Neil, do you think you go down the road of punditry or commentary?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I've done it a few times for I think I've done it a few times for Eurosport and really enjoyed that. You know, I think the year I wasn't at the Masters, where going there as a pundit, actually still being in the top 16. So the UK finished, and that was the cutoff for the Masters, and I was just outside it. And then I won the Scottish Open, a few days later, and I was back in the 16. So it was quite strange going there, seeing the guy knocked out of the 16 is actually competing in the event, and I'm not in it. But doing that with with Colin Murray and Ronnie and Jimmy, and you're just listening to unbelievable stories nonstop. It's great fun, and just commentating on the game. And it's a much more relaxed approach, and I wasn't too sure how much I'd enjoy it, but I actually really enjoyed it a lot. And I feel as though if you've got something really good to offer the people that are listening, then it's actually, you get a lot out of that. Actually, you're not just kind of just commentating on the sport. You want to make the people at home feel as engaged as possible. You want to mix it up with keeping it simple, but also you want the people out there who want to know the ins and outs of the game, make that as understandable for them as possible as well. I think some commentators can make the mistake of overcomplicating things too much, and also just keeping it a little bit too sort of straightforward. And I think that makes the best commentators is the people who can sort of mix that up the best.
Yeah, great.
I mean, that for me, I think, has been one of the best things about the Championship League. Caught bits of that, but what was great is hearing so many players almost doing the punditry on there, because the people who, like Peter Lyons was fantastic. Like, it's hilarious, some of the things he was saying, and joking about some of the shots played, and you just got a feel for what you probably know anyway, Neil. From almost like the players' lounge behind the scenes type thing.
They're like vultures when a decider's on. Everyone flocks to the players' lounge and to talk about it and stuff like that. Yeah, it used to be terrible in the qualifiers, because years ago when I was lower ranked, you'd know in the back of your head that if your match goes to a decider, you got 10 players that will actually all come in to the cubicles and just watch your decider, and they're like literally like, a few feet away, and you're just looking back and thinking like, oh, really, guys? Like, you're waiting now to come in and watch, so it's kind of funny, thinking back to that. And I remember playing one qualifying match, and the match before it, someone must have been crazy nervous, because there's loads of fingernail clippings around the stool that somebody hadn't actually cleaned up. So someone must have been really nervous, chewing non-stop of their nails during the match. And the qualifiers, the stories from the qualifiers are just incredible, things that have happened. And I remember bumping into Robert Milkins one time in China in the hallway, on our floor in the hotel. And he had a couple of beers, probably just relaxing. He got beat, and he sort of pulled me up, in the hallway. And he just snooker players are really strange. We'll find anything that's like a rectangular shape that represents like a snooker table, like a phone or something like that. And we'll start say, yeah, this happened there and there. And he's like, the door was like the perfect sort of silhouette of a snooker table. So he's gone, yeah, the black was here, white was down there, and he's gone, this happened. He's come off a cushion, he's flicked snooker back, and
usually a beer mat when you're in the pub.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I suppose as well, in the days before that you had to chew your nails, you used to have alcohol at the table, so maybe that was a good karma.
That's right. Yeah. And the game's come on massively sort of since then. And like Big Bill Werbenick having, goodness me, an awful amount of pints before you go out there because he was that nervous. And I think quite a lot of players used to smoke cigarettes as well at the table, and you can't do that anymore. And some of them, they can't wait to quickly get out to at the interval to quickly have a cigarette or something, just to try and calm the nerves. And that's something that it's good in a way that I'm seeing less and less people do that. And that's why I think a lot of people actually been able to prolong their careers as long as possible, because well gone are the days of the 80s of drinking so much beer and sort of smoking cigarettes at the table and all that sort of stuff. Now it's the players drinking water and stuff. And obviously Mike Williams is the odd exception. He still loves drinking like a Coke while he's out there and nicking a bag of minstrels from someone in the audience like he did in the World Championships. But generally speaking, the guys try and be as professional as possible, because if you can keep yourself really healthy, then there's no reason why you can't keep playing kind of as long as you want.
And away from the table, I mean, one of the things that we know, well, I think it's fairly well covered, really, one of your interests. And Lee, you were mentioning Warhammer, I think, earlier, weren't you?
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah, you've got a great collection of Warhammer stuff. Do you still play the tournaments, and you still into Warhammer?
Yeah. I love Warhammer. Obviously with like the pandemic and stuff, it kind of like put all that on hold with like going into the shops and playing tournaments and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
you know, slowly they're started up again now, and so yeah, I'm kind of really looking forward to you know, getting the paintbrushes out and starting, you know, to paint them again. And yeah, that's a fantastic hobby. I really enjoy as well. And you know, just something again, I'm like quite lucky that I'm actually like, you know, quite good at as well, like painting them. I've done sort of like top 3 armies in certain tournaments and stuff, and yeah, a lot of compliments, you know, with the painting that I've done. So yeah, that's also like a really nice thing to kind of, you know, chill out to and do. And yeah, I love Warhammer. I love like the story behind it is unbelievable. There's a whole library based on like the lore of Warhammer 40,000 and stuff like that. It's incredible. And you know, the books are unbelievably well written. And that's one thing I miss about traveling to China, is that I used to read so much when I'd travel away to China, and on the plane and that, you know, I'd read like, I could read like a book this sort of like thick on just on the plane to China. And I think, oh yeah, China, yeah, you know, maybe get like a good sort of good sleep, but I'll be this with the book, just like can't put it down. Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to kind of getting back into that. And yeah, it's something that, yeah, I enjoy a lot.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's funny because the whole gaming thing, you know, I mean, me and Lee only know each other because of Snooker 19, the PlayStation game.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's only because of that, because we were playing in a league together, and we're kind of just under the podcast, just set up a ladder competition as well. And we've got 16 people just joined that on Pro Plus, so that'll be cool. But so how big I know you're into, or you certainly have been into your gaming. I mean, tell us more about that, because you're in your kind of gaming chair as it is.
Yeah. This is like the man cave. It even has a sign out the front of the door, man cave. Yeah, I mean, at times, like I think I got a little bit too involved with some video games, where I think one in particular was League of Legends, which the games I kind of got to stay away from, like the video games I got to stay away from, are the ones that are really ultra competitive. So League of Legends is one that's just way too competitive. I get really angry when I lose at that. And another one is FIFA, like the football game.
Oh yeah.
on the PlayStation or Xbox. And there's so many days when like when Alexander was younger, I'd drop him off at school, I'll come home at like 10 to 9 or whatever, and I think I was a bit too early to go to the club. So I think, I'll just make a cup of coffee, just play one game of FIFA while I'm chilling, having coffee, you know, waking up, whatever, and then I'll go to the club. And the amount of times I'm still holding that damn controller and it's like 10 to 3 and I've got to pick up Alexander soon was crazy. Because like, you know, I'll be playing the game and I'm probably playing some 13-year-old kid who's maybe he's maybe wagged from the day off from school or something, told his parents he was sick or something. And so, you know, when someone scores against you, they can do the shush celebration to you, you know, and then just driving nuts. And yeah, you know, and yeah, I'll just get way into that game way too much. So I ban myself from playing that, and I don't have any sort of gaming issues whatsoever. I play the odd like games and stuff like that. I play a bit of World of Warcraft, which actually some of my Warhammer friends actually got me playing that again. When it was like the lockdown, yeah, everyone was kind of like stuck at home, right? We couldn't really leave or go anywhere, and so just started. That was my way of communicating with some of my friends, was just like, you know, playing some games with them and stuff like that, you know. So I think video games can be like a great outlet to sort of, you know, just maybe escape things for a couple of hours, but it's really important to know when you're sort of going a bit too far, because when I was younger, there were certainly times when, you know, playing like League of Legends where I'll be playing the game and then the birds start tweeting outside because it's like 5:30 in the morning. It's like, okay, I better go to bed right now. Like, you know. So yeah, there's been a few times like that, and I've got many friends who've done it like Football Manager, and you know, just can't, you know, sometimes you just get a little bit too involved with them. And I've done a lot of stuff with you know, video game addiction. I've done quite a few interviews about it, and also as a parent as well, watching your kids, making sure they're not getting too involved. And I think during the lockdown, that was really tough on the kids. I felt, you know, not being at school, not being able to see their friends. And it was important from my experiences to keep an eye on, say, Alexander, to make sure he wasn't just getting a bit too involved with it, you know. But I know a lot of parents struggle with that, and I think it was a really tough time, obviously, for everyone. So yeah, it's things in moderation is just really important to that. And yeah, but great fun and also a good way to just relax in between matches. If I am at a hotel, if there's not much to do, just chill out for a couple of hours, not think about snooker, not worry about who's playing up on the TV. So I think it's good to have those kind of like little escapes every now and again.
Yeah, definitely. And I know some of the guys we know, Lee, were kind of found the snooker 19 really helpful during furlough for some of them, because they had all that time suddenly at home, but they could really develop some of them had brilliant gameplay after months of being on furlough, didn't they?
That's right. I know it certainly helped for me. I love my snooker, and obviously I couldn't get to play snooker. So
yeah.
Although it was only a game, it was quite realistic, and it gave you a lot of the excitement that I was missing from a normal game of snooker. It was great.
Yeah. It's an amazing game, actually. I did really well with it. Like the gameplay was incredible. I remember like the first snooker games from many years ago were completely different. I remember one of them you actually almost couldn't miss, didn't matter what the shot was. It was crazy.
Yeah.
No, it's really good. They've done really well with that game.
Are you happy with your likeness on there? Obviously, they've made almost put you into the game. So are you happy with that? Have they done a good job?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, I was happy with what they did. I think I think they did a good job, actually. Like I say, compared to how the games were made, like 15, 20 years ago, it was a massive improvement.
Yeah.
Great. That's really cool. The others, you can't always rely, obviously, on what you read about people on the internet. The other thing I found out, though, and it did jump out for me when I looked on Wikipedia a while ago, was about veganism. And I'm vegetarian personally. I went vegetarian a few years ago, and I've always thought about going vegan, but I always felt like I could never fully be vegan. Oh, no. That's not a problem.
That's usually the one people struggle with.
No, not at all. I'm not really big into cheese. It was more that it's not the food. I think the food's fine. Like, I have almond milk on cereal, and I don't eat any meat. I haven't eaten meat for years. No fish, nothing. So it doesn't bother me. But it was more things like clothing choices and things like, leather and things. Not that big into it. I don't know where we're going with the leather conversation. Anyway, but you kind of think about it. You think if you're going to embrace the whole lifestyle, it's actually. I mean, even beer has got better over the years. How do you find it?
Yeah, I think that's something I'd never apply any kind of pressure or judgment on if they still wear kind of animal products, especially if they're in a position where, they can't just throw out their whole closet and buy a whole new wardrobe. I think that's ridiculous to kind of expect that on someone to to do that, to just throw out all their leather shoes or clothes that are made out of wool or whatever. I think that, I think that's not really being realistic. And I haven't liked the name that some of those people do when they apply that kind of pressure to people. I think that, for me, I try to do it as close as possible. I think veganism, is like, it's impossible to obtain. I know some people don't even get on a bus because they think it hits flies or insects, and I think that's just going to a level which actually brings a lot of bad publicity on it. Actually, I think everyone's got a right to kind of protest, maybe like against animal welfare, especially like the factory farming and stuff like that, and the impact that it is having on the climate. Because we the deforestation, especially like to the Amazon, to just have more and more land for like, the cows and stuff like that. And it's just having a really bad impact on the planet. And I think, gladly that, enough people are kind of seeing that and making changes, whether or not they eat, a bit, like they eat less meat, they have maybe, some days they dedicate during the week to have like, I think a lot of, they're trying to promote sort of like meatless Mondays or something like that. And, so it's certainly come a long way from where it was before. And I think that, for me, I am in a position where I can kind of, do it whenever I can possible. I mean, the shoes I still wear though are made out of leather. Like when I got them in like 2011 or something, because I've tried a few pairs of vegan shoes to play snooker, and they gave me blisters after my first match. I couldn't wear them again, because they just weren't made of a material that you could actually play snooker in. And for me, I think that's kind of crazy. If I would have put myself through that, and I'd need like to put like plasters on the back of my heels just to play snooker, I think it's crazy. So, you know, I'm trying to find a brand that I can actually like wear and be completely comfortable playing snooker. But you know, I know Peter Ebdon's made a few jokes where people go, "Oh yeah, but do you use a leather tip when you play snooker?" A few years ago, and he goes, "Oh no, actually, I've worked on this new compressed avocado tip that I'm playing snooker." So I think like you need to be a bit realistic with your expectations and stuff. I mean, I'm like whole, you know, plant-based. I don't eat any animal products. I've found the transition, you know, very easy to do. And yeah, I you know, embrace anyone to kind of, you know, to give it a go and see if they like it or not. If they don't, then that's their choice. And I think it's important that people do actually have a choice, that, you know, I think it's important to be kind of, if you can, to educate yourself and then make the choice. But if whatever choice you make, that's your choice to make. You know, you can't put pressure on someone or have arguments. And, you know, you can do if they start to be a bit kind of silly with certain things. I know Mark Williams has tried to wind myself up on Twitter a few times when he's, you know, like he put half a cow on a plate once, and he's like, "Oh, hey, Neil, hey, how better this?" You know, so like, you know, but yeah, that's the way I choose to live life, and I feel as though I've got a lot of benefit out of it. And I know a lot of people who have done as well. But each to their own, and everyone's got that choice to make, you know.
Yeah. How long ago did you go vegan?
2015, was it? 2015? Yeah, I think so. No, at the end of 2014 it may have been, actually. Yeah, it was. It was the end of 2014. Yeah. And yeah, I got a lot of like publicity about it and that, and because you know, there weren't too many athletes at the time doing it, and that was one of the decisions I was
Okay, so what I think we'll do is we'll just move to the questions. What we did was we put out on the Twitter channel just a general appeal, really, to see if people had any questions for Neil. We had loads, to the point that I've had to edit a little bit there just to kind of get it down to a manageable number. And I'll try and call out some names of people who have submitted, even if I don't read them out, because I think they've put the effort in to say hi, really. So James Precious, he's in fact one of the guys that we've known through some of the Snooker 19. Mentioned John McBride. We've got M Davies 147. I'm not sure the full name, but that's the Twitter. And I'm going to just go through a few questions, Neil. So if you would, I hope these will be quite good, interesting ones. Rob Francis asked us about an injury, your worst injury, but you did tell us about the latest one, so the hamstring.
Yeah, when my son gave me a black eye as well quite a few months ago. We were playing football with him. I probably should stop playing football with him. Yeah, he lifted his head up as we were both sort of like trying to win the ball off each other. I was trying to apply a little bit of physical pressure on him, work on that, you know, winning the ball back under pressure, and he's just like lifted his head up and it just got me right in the eye socket. I'm pretty sure I put it on Instagram or something like that as well. So yeah, it gave me a real black eye, that did. So yeah, to go with the hamstring injuries, yeah, I'm not having the best of luck with football. But that would yeah, that would certainly be it. Yeah, the hamstring one for sure. That was brutal. I mean, if that happened mid-season, I probably would have missed maybe a tournament or two, I'd say.
Wow, they can be worse than kind of breaks, can't they? They take longer, strains and kind of muscles. And
yeah, I mean, it's taken months to recover. Yeah, for sure. And playing snooker, you don't think of it as like being a physically demanding sport, but like, I pretended to kind of play snooker in my house, just on the kitchen table, see how bad it would be. And yeah, it's like I'd have to stand like Mark King. Yeah, Mark King with really bent legs. That's how I'd have to stand if I were able to play. And I don't think I could have done that.
Oh, oh dear. Okay, a few more questions we've got then. So we've got one here. I think you might have liked this on Twitter, so you might be ready for this one. We had someone called John O'Dew, it says on here. It was the Twitter. There was 3 questions in one, really. Do you know him? Are you ready for this one?
Yeah, he must be from Australia, because he asked about like the Collingwood Magpies and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like the AFL. So yeah.
That's right. He was asking about memories of the Brunswick Club. Any memories?
Yeah.
If there's anything that stands out.
Yeah, I mean, the Brunswick Club was got so much history of in Australian snooker. Many great players have come from there. You go in there, it's got the tiered seating around the number one table with all the old plaques and like, you know, state and Australian champions, like, you know, going back to like, you know, like the 60s, 70s and stuff like that. And you see all the previous winners and that. And, you know, yeah, you see, it even goes up the way to like, you know, George Ganem Jr. and stuff. People were coached by Walter Lindrum, and yeah, a lot of history in that place, and produced many great players as well.
Oh, brilliant. And he said, when did you last visit Ringwood?
Last visited Ringwood, possibly would have been the last time I was in Australia, which is like a couple of years ago now, unfortunately. But yeah, the club that my dad had is no longer there anymore. And yeah, my friend was come and picked me up from my mom's place in the city and drove me off on the motorway. We got off the motorway and he goes, "Do you recognize where we are?" And I looked around, I was like, no, I don't recognize any of this whatsoever. But then I remembered, like, at the top of a hill, there was a Hungry Jack's, which is like a Burger King that was like at the top of the hill. And my dad's snooker club was like at the bottom of it. And then when I looked around, I realized where I was, and it's just unrecognizable. That whole area, you know, it gone through a huge makeover, and it's much better for it, but certainly not the place I kind of grew up in. Yeah.
Oh wow! And he's got his money's worth here. Although I didn't charge him, but he did ask a third one, which was, who do you think should be the next Collingwood FC coach?
Yeah, that's the Collingwood Magpies, my Australian football team, and the next coach I'd like to see would be Alistair Clarkson, who's leaving Hawthorn at the end of the year, and he coached Hawthorn to 4 premierships over the last kind of 10 years or so. So, wow. Yeah, very successful coach, and yeah, I'd be happy with him to take over the reins at Collingwood.
Fantastic. There's a sport where you see some injuries.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so James Laird, he said that quite a few pros compliment your cue action. And he was intrigued about that, really, in terms of your cue action. I guess it's around how you've developed it, and it seems very easy. A lot of people point that out about your game.
Yeah, something that's taken a long time to develop. I think that certainly looks a lot different when I first came on the tour as well. But yeah, it's something where you try and find something that's as rhythmical as possible, I suppose. Something that, yeah, it's always kind of flowing. It's never really stopping at any points, because you want the muscles to be nice and flowing, nice and relaxed. You know, you don't want it to be. There used to be a big emphasis on having like a really long pause on the backswing and then hitting. But you know, if you look at myself, Ronnie, and the other guys, a lot of the time, it looks like we've got a pause, but it's just like a very slow back, and then it's like, you know, really following through and then focusing on the follow through right at the end. You know, getting the most amount of acceleration through the cue balls is the most important thing. It's not how hard you hit the shot. People think to do a big screw back, you got to hit it really hard. I'm sure if you do hit it really hard, you know, eventually you're going to maybe catch one right, but it's about the timing. It's all about the timing of the shot.
Great. Lee's nodding away there. I think Lee appreciates some of that.
I would love to get some of that time in. You know, I tend to hit the ball too hard trying to screw back, and I know it's about timing, but it's so hard to perfect. Sometimes you catch them right, but probably 80% of the time you're just hitting them too hard.
Yeah, it is tough. Yeah, like conditions do play a part as well. Yeah, you know, if you're playing on a club table without heaters under the table, then, you know, probably don't put yourself under that same kind of pressure to be able to screw the ball back with accuracy, because like many of the top pros, you know, wouldn't be able to do that either. You know, we do practice on fantastic conditions as well, it must be said. So, you know, similar like football pitches now today, and, you know, like golf courses, you know, like the guys are playing off the fairway, and it's like, you know, hitting the ball off like carpet or something, isn't it? So yeah,
it's like
certainly to take into consideration.
Yeah, it's like if you're trying to split the pack off the black on a club table, you've got to hit it so hard. But you notice on the TV that they just open up. Yeah,
they probably split open a little bit too easy on TV, I would say sometimes. I think it has taken a little bit of the art out of break building sometimes. That does seem the most effective way now, is to sort of get low on a red that's just below the pack, and you use that as the shot to create, all the balls moving around and going up for the, the blue or the bulk colors. And I've gone back home to play in tournaments, around 2004, 2005, where I've struggled to make like a 40 break in some of the tournaments because the balls just don't move around. So, it isn't as easy as what it looks like on TV. Although we play on like really tight pockets, in some ways it's much easier than playing on a club table where the cloths are slow and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's some good insights there. A lot of people will identify with that. A few other people asked questions, some that we've covered. There was Josh at Kemporia. We're probably not going to get that one in, but I have got your shout out, so you're in there. Christopher Manuel asked about retirement plans. I think it was just a general question, but you've kind of covered that really, Neil, when you said that, you're kind of thinking that at some point in the future, whether you'll head back to Australia. That was part of Christopher's question there. So it sounds like that's in the thinking, and there's still a decision to make at some future point there.
Yeah, I mean, my mum's always asking me about it. Obviously she's grandmother to Alexander and Penelope, and isn't really too involved with them. And obviously things like FaceTime and that make it an awful lot easier. And but yeah, it's a strange situation that I'm in. I'm probably the only kind of player on the tour who kind of like has this kind of dilemma, I suppose. And I guess while I'm really enjoying my snooker and really competing for all the biggest tournaments, and retirement's not really sort of in my head at the moment, although you always like to think ahead to have some sort of plan there when that time comes.
Yeah, and I suppose you've also got, maybe, I don't know how the pull is strong, but obviously you're now, or to-be wife, and her family and where she's from, so you've kind of got very different areas of the globe, really.
I don't know if I could live there, mate. That's so cold, -20 and all that. Like just to go outside to like go to the shops or something is a fair old effort to get all the layers of clothes in and the shoes and all. Yeah. So a lovely place though. It's amazing in the winter. I mean, we went there for Christmas, and to see all the snow and stuff. It is so nice and Christmassy and cozy, and we were just there obviously, and enjoyed like what the summer has to offer as well. So but it's like, it does get cold there though.
So Miller's not pushing you to think about that in your retirement plans, going back to the kind of Nordic.
maybe a little, but I think look, we're really fortunate that where we live in the UK, and building the life we are here. I mean, we're really happy where we are.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's really good. You seem very settled. This is a cheeky one, but you might have expected a question about this anyway somewhere. So Robert Thompson asks, what hairstyle this season?
I'll be going back to like something certainly a bit more normal, and not so much sideshow bob, which was like towards the middle part and end of last season. The memes have got to stop. I can't handle them all. Although it was great fun, especially when I beat Ronnie in the final, and the picture of like the llamas, like the one where it was me and then the llama or something. Oh my god, that'll never go away. So but it was good fun. I think that like one of the things, the reason why I just like kept kind of growing it and getting it out of control is that during like the lockdown, I think that like people didn't have access to hairdressers and all this sort of stuff, and I could have snuck one into my house if I wanted to go about sort of trying to do that. And it's one of the things I didn't like about the footballers is that, well, not all of them, but like there were so many that just couldn't be like everyone else. It's okay if we, everyone's got their hair out of control and, stuff like that. It was one thing that kind of bugged me, that all the hairdressers, like, obviously they haven't done that themselves, and they've obviously got a hairdresser in. And I just didn't think it was a great example to like, for me personally, I didn't like it. So I was like, you know what, stuff it. And I was going to keep growing it. Yeah. Oh my God. What? Oh, it's like, hey, he's one of us. Hey, I've been after 6 months without seeing a hairdresser. So it was good. And actually, it was really good banter and interaction with the fans as well while it was happening. So it was good. I certainly don't regret it at all. But I'm getting married on Saturday, so I had to make sure I got a haircut. I'm gonna get another one like on Wednesday. So I don't think Miller would have liked those photos in 20 years' time.
Yeah, there was wig wearing at the tournaments and all sorts, wasn't there?
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So Sean O'Donnell asked, this was a good one. Are you as popular in Australia as you are in the UK and Ireland?
No, I wouldn't be. I mean, amongst the people that play Q Sports, yeah, absolutely. But I remember winning the world title and going back home, and when I won the world title, it was like back page news. It was even like front page. It was just went back home on all these TV shows and everything. But then eventually, obviously, the hype, it goes away because there's obviously like another Australian winner at another sport, or you have your kind of few weeks of fame, and then I guess winning the world title, no matter what I did after that, was never going to be able to create the same kind of hype. There's a big difference between being the first ever Australian to win the world title, winning the Masters, winning the UK. It's not really the same. And so while a lot of the sports radio shows, like the equivalent of your Talk Sports back home, are in contact with me quite a lot, and I do quite a fair bit in between matches or after winning tournaments, which was actually really nice, because there was a period for a few years where I'd win something big and then I'd just hear nothing, and so people with media connections are doing their bit, but the fact is that I'm permanently pretty much in the UK all the time. Yeah. So there's never really that opportunity to kind of promote the sport the same way back home or get things going, getting more juniors involved. I'd love to be more hands-on with finding the next kind of Neil Robertson, but at the moment it's just not really an option. And it's a bit of a shame, but I mean, I never really crave being famous or anything like that. It's never really something I've enjoyed. In fact, I've kind of felt uncomfortable when I have done certain things where, sometimes you get celebrities and they're in there like sort of, it's like a little ball pit of like their playground of, they're all just like big kids playing with each other. And I'm just like, yeah, like, I don't know, I'm just me. I'm nothing special about me. I'm just like a normal kind of guy. I prefer to be just with my friends and whoever. I don't really care if you're wealthy or whatever you do for a living. If I like you, I like you. Your how you're perceived in the public as like being famous, and that doesn't really matter to me. So yeah, that's just me. It's boring. So yeah, but
no, but it's handy with school teachers, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Like I say, yeah, it does have it. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Well, linked to that, really. Bailey Raphael or Raffle Bailey said, "Can you?" And you've kind of half answered it. Can you see more Australian players becoming out on the circuit over the next 5 to 10 years? And also, I think he was quite keen to see ranking tournaments back in Australia. So, what do you see as the future? Can you see Australian youngsters coming through? Is there a production line coming?
I mean, yeah, I guess the golden spell was when I was coming over a bit before my time. Junior competitions would regularly have century breaks made in them back home. When I was playing, obviously, and a lot of other players as well. But over time, that has kind of died off a bit. I think that while I've shown everyone what's possible, then they also realize, well, are they committed to spending 10 years away from, their family and friends and all this sort of stuff? And, that's a huge commitment to make. And, if I was living in a country where, if Alexander maybe took up like a tennis or something, or whatever sport it would be, or whatever it would be, and if he says to me, hey, I'm going to move to like the other side of the world, you're going to see me once a year for the next 20 years, like I wouldn't be too keen to push him into that kind of field, and I think that's probably where, maybe a lot of people in Australia or parents are probably keen to push their kids into other things rather than maybe a sport that involves them with, being on the other side of the world. And probably even football's a good example. Why aren't we seeing a lot more Australian footballers in the Premier League like we used to with Harry Kewell and Mark Viduka? Is probably because of that they don't want to see, they don't want to push their kids away. So it's a really tough one. It's a really tough one, and I think that, and Australia as well as such a great lifestyle. The weather's always great, and there's never a beach more than 20-30 minutes away. It makes that much easier to to say, nah, I think I'll just stay home and do something else and play snooker part-time, be a good amateur or something. Where, you know, look at the boys from China, they're so keen to get over here to the UK to make it here, and that I think that's why we're seeing so many more from China coming through than anywhere else. They've got the hunger and the desire, and they're absolutely desperate you know, for a better quality of life.
And it works the opposite way as well, doesn't it? I mean, you know, in my day job, I work with GPs a lot, so the family doctors, and quite a lot of them finish their medical training and then go to Australia. So they get trained in the UK, and they're like, "I'm out. I'm off to Australia. That's the better lifestyle." Yeah, it's just that it's so much more attractive to them. You know, it's probably a nicer existence, as you say. The weather, the beaches, just the whole way. Everything
easygoing life. You know, everyone. Yeah, everyone's exactly. In Australia, everyone's just really relaxed. You know, you get so many people who just walking across the street from each other say g'day or hello, and you know, it just seems a bit it's just like a happier place in general, I suppose. And I mean, I guess that's why I'm pretty lucky I ended up in Cambridge, because Cambridge has got that kind of international feel where I don't know, it just seems a bit more chilled than some of the other, you know, places I've been to in the UK.
Yeah, and we did get a lot of. Sorry, Lee, go on.
Sorry, Michael. I was just going to say, I suppose when you've got that weather in Australia, your outlook's just a bit happier anyway. You know, it's nice to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, exactly. The weather makes a huge impact. You know, I think that, yeah, for sure, definitely, it has a huge impact. You know, there's like cafes in Scandinavia that have like the lights in them to, you know, the UV lights or whatever to replicate like sunlight, you know, to help people with depression and stuff like that. So, you know, Australia is certainly not short of sunlight, that's for sure.
We had a number of Spanish fans actually who kind of asked. I had to do the translate tweet thing and see what they were saying, but they were saying they'd love to kind of get an interview with you in Spanish. So I don't know if that's something that they can fix up somehow.
In Spanish, I'll have to have a translator. I don't know anyone who speaks Spanish.
No, it's an interesting one. So there's obviously a fan base in Spain who are interested in following you as well. I guess the last one. We'll put that out. We'll let people know. They'll listen to us, and you know, that would be cool. And I suppose this links a bit to the gaming, you know, a little bit. And I thought this was an interesting question. This was. I think it was Scott, actually, Scott Edwards Rainey. So he was asking about, does your gaming with the role-playing games help snooker? And he explains it further here, because at first I wasn't sure where he was going with this. But he said, have you ever, to almost brighten up the practice sessions, devised almost a fantasy element to the snooker, i.e. pretending you're a warrior with a cue and there's some toxic balls to blow up, and you know, almost it's to put that element into the practice as you're doing it? I thought that was a cool question once I understood it.
Yeah, I've never really gone to that in depth. No. Yeah, I never really thought about it like that way. But whoever asked that question is definitely very creative, that's for sure.
Actually,
I've never really got
snooker. The clue might be in the name. Actually, Rainey was asking about Snooker 19. Scott was asking about Snooker 19. We've covered that. It was Snooker Podcast who said that. Snooker Podcast were asking about the role-playing game element and whether you almost bring that into practice, which is a great one.
It probably freaked Joe Perry out a bit, I think, if he saw that.
Come in with like a big cloak on and a whole mysterious persona. That would be brilliant. I mean, that's what it should do.
The closest thing I got to was a couple of years ago when I won the China Open. I beat someone in the last 32 or last 16, and the player was annoying me a little bit with just how slow they were playing. And like Game of Thrones, I love, like, Game of Thrones was amazing up until like the last season. And there was a scene where someone, like, you know, had the spear and jumped up in the air and went, "Ah!" like that. And I was watching Game of Thrones in China's like reruns on my iPad, and the player who I beat was just really annoying me. And I just, like, for some reason, I jumped off in the air with my cue and I went like that, like, as if I was like really like, yeah, finally finish him off, you know. A few people caught it on Twitter and went, "Oh, that celebration," you know. It was like, it's funny. There might be a picture of it somewhere, but I definitely did it, and yeah, that's probably the closest I've got to. So yeah, thank you for that person for reminding me of that. Actually, it was really funny when I did it.
Yeah, you can almost see it, couldn't you? Where like the life level goes down on the counter as you're getting your break up, and the other guy's slumping down into the chair. That'd be brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, they get
Like
their bow
idea.
tie off and unbutton the waistcoat. They're just waiting.
Just
I don't know why
finish it.
players do that. Actually, is it that hard to just wait another 30 seconds, shake the hand, and then?
Exactly.
I was reading earlier actually about players standing up whilst the other guy's taking a shot. That's something that
That's
a few
terrible.
players are
That's
quite
shocking.
annoyed about.
Oh,
Quite rude, isn't it?
Brutal. Well, it's when it's the other player's shot. Unless you're just playing basic safety, where you don't really want the players to be up and down out of the chair. If you're both just playing safety at the the bulk end or the black end when you're hitting the reds up in the bulk and you're getting the white back on the black cushion. Unless you guys are doing that, then just like if your opponent's definitely attempting a pot, then just sit down. That's just etiquette of the game. I know a lot of players try to apply pressure by sort of standing within the peripheral vision.
Right.
When you are taking on a long pot, to sort of let you know, hey, if you miss this, I'm standing here, just to let you know I'm ready to pounce on your mistake. Which only motivates me more to pot it, of course.
Yeah.
Some other players, it does work on. And there used to be a lot of sort of rattling of the water bottle, waving the towel, pretending to clean the cue, and that has been sort of stamped out. The officials are well aware of that. There is still a little bit of it that goes on, particularly in the sort of outer side tables where there's not so much focus with the TV, and then the qualifiers. But I think that all the matches are pretty much sort of live streamed now, so you can always go back and check to see who's been naughty or pulled a little shifty here or there. But something in the game I don't like. I mean, snooker is a gentleman's sport, and 95% of it is played to the utmost standard. But there are probably 5% there that kind of do spoil it a little bit, and maybe just get a little bit too desperate to win.
Yeah. The last question I've got from one of the guys on Twitter. You can decide. You can have a veto on this if you don't want to answer it. You wonder what's coming up. So as a guy whose name, I'm not sure whether to name him or not, but his handle is a character out of Only Fools and Horses. And he said, ask Neil about the incident involving somebody you've mentioned already, Vinny Calbresi, a lighter and a bottle of washing detergent.
That would be, I'm pretty sure that must be Martin who put that question in. Yeah. So Vinny, he this would have been 2006 or 7. This is that when we lived in the car park, the house next to the Cambridge Snooker Centre at the time. It'd be like this house like this in the car park. It's like the strangest thing you've ever seen. And then like the snooker club. So we used to just like walk to the snooker club and back. Like, and Joe Perry used to freak out that how can you be late? I'd arrange to practice with Joe at 10 or 10:30, and he'll get there before me. And he'd be like, how can I get here before you? You have to walk 10 feet to get to the club. And so anyway, so there wasn't much to do. We didn't have internet or Sky TV or anything. So Vinny used to crack all little jokes and stuff. And so I was playing the PlayStation. I was playing like Master League on the PlayStation. And I had my beanie on, and my hair was like quite long at the back. And I remember playing it, and all of a sudden I just heard like Vinny used to have he had this chuckle like this. I heard that, and then I could sort of like smell smoke or something, and like I felt like the back. What was that? And then he's run off, and like there was like some smoke sort of like coming out of my hair and like the bottom of the beanie, and he lit the bottom of my hair on fire with a lighter. While I was playing, I didn't know. He snuck up behind me, behind the couch, and he just like lit the lighter. And so then what happened was I was absolutely furious because it looked really weird, like I've got a bit of hair missing, obviously. And so I was chasing him around the snooker club. And I don't know if you guys have experienced it, but myself and my brother, we used to try and chase each other around the table, and it's impossible to catch the person. You can't catch them. Like it's just you can't make up that ground. You can go one way, then fake the other, then it's too clever. Vinny's got an older brother as well, so so I tried jumping over the table, and the stepdaughter of who owned the club was freaked out. She because all the customers are looking at me jumping over a table. Just won my first ranking event, the Grand Prix. I'm jumping over a snooker table, and Vinny's laughing. Everyone else is laughing. It's making me more angry. And then I sprinted, and somehow I cornered him, and then he ran out of the club. And now I'm running out of the club, chasing him. And while I was chasing him, I had like a bottle of dishwashing detergent that I got from my kitchen because I was chasing him. And I pinned him down and I just squirted it all over his face. And then we're both absolutely exhausted and we're just looking at each other outside, and then you're like, what the hell are we doing? It's just, yeah. So that's that story anyway. Yeah, crazy.
Good story. Well, I think you've set people a challenge now. So if you can get to a snooker table in the next week, try and chase somebody around it. See if you can catch them.
It's impossible.
Brilliant. I mean, that's the questions from Twitter. That's thank you for dealing with that. The last thing we've got, Neil, if you can humour us just for this last bit, really, we've got something that we started doing a few episodes ago, just to kind of wrap it up, really, and it's a bit of quick fire, just kind of almost a one-line question, really, and we call it clearing the colours. So we theme it with the balls as we go through, and then we'll kind of alternate between me and Lee with a question each, and we'll do that from yellow to black. So the first question from me on the yellow, to get the yellow, it's a fairly easy yellow. It's not going to be too challenging. Who's the funniest player on tour, would you say?
It has to be Matt Selt. He is just like, I mean, we spent so much time with each other, like in the car, traveling to tournaments and stuff. And yeah, it's Matt. He can literally make you cry from laughter. He's just absolutely incredible. It's Matt hands down for sure. Right,
great. Very easily slotted away. Lee, you're going to set the green up, I think.
Green question here, Neil. You sort of touched on this earlier on, that the Crucible wasn't your favourite venue. So the question is, what's your favourite venue away from the Crucible?
Well, there's two that come to mind, but I'd say the most electric atmosphere I've ever played in was at the Hong Kong Masters a few years ago, where it was just the top 8 players in the world invited to go out to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Crowd of 3,000, just absolutely unbelievable. And the thing is, like, they clapped pretty much every shot, so it was like the atmosphere was awesome. Playing Ronnie in the final as well, you know. Early in the tournament, Barry Hawkins couldn't believe the reception he got coming out to that crowd, you know. And so after the interval, he went back out with his phone and recorded coming out to that atmosphere again. It was that good, you know. Yeah, it's something I've the German Masters is like kind of, you know, up there, but that was just a whole nother level. It was just absolutely crazy, and one of the most amazing weeks I've ever had as well.
Yeah, great.
Fantastic. That's a good one. Go on, Lee. Sorry, were you about to say something?
Was that the final in Hong Kong? You beat Ronnie in the final?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's the one. Yep.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, so the green's safely down. We'll go on to the brown. In terms of players who haven't yet won the world title, who do you think the next one will be to win it, if that makes sense?
Oh, the next one to win it, people that haven't won it. You probably have to say that, like, the format probably suits the way Karen plays, I think, and super dedicated player. I remember him coming to WTs in Cambridge to play Joe quite a lot, sort of earning his apprenticeship as a player when he was maybe 17, 18, 19. And I could tell right away he was really hungry to be like a really good player in the game. And he got to the final, a couple other semi-finals. So you have to say he's most likely knocking on the door. But then if Ding ever really kind of solves the puzzle of the Crucible, I guess, Ding is certainly the best player who hasn't won it, but you'd have to say most likely it probably looks like Karen and, Anthony McGill as well. He's had a good couple of world titles as well, and someone who loves the game, loves putting in the hours, and again, the format probably kind of suits the way he plays. So yeah, but I'll probably have to. If I had to pick someone who hasn't won it, I'll probably have to say Karen at the moment.
Carroll Wilson. Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much, Neil. So again, Brown, you're not having any problems with these. It's this legendary break building, isn't it? So Lee, over to you for the blue.
Well, this is quite a tricky blue. It's a thin cut blue. So the question would be, which actor would you get to play in the film?
Oh, to play me.
It's a tough blue.
The Q
Chris
action's fading a
Hemsworth.
bit there, isn't it?
Thor from Marvel.
There we go.
rescued at the end there. Lovely, Chris Hemsworth. Oh, good shot. Okay, Andy, Pink, you've been very open and candid anyway so far, so I'm not sure if there's much that you can say we haven't heard in some ways, but are there any interesting personal facts about you that perhaps we might not know about? Anything that you haven't told us about?
Me, I don't know, maybe a bit of OCD, like sort of things kind of like just really like my son's got these little like fidget, not like the spinners, but like these other things where you pop the sides and then you make it all one side. I hate it when it's like not all done on one side. And so yeah, whenever I see it around the house, I'm like, oh God, I've got to pop this one, pop. There you go, back in place. Yeah, just like like little things like that, I suppose. Yeah, just like I don't know, some little things I've always got to put in certain ways and stuff. Maybe, not quite to the levels of David Beckham, where every kind of can of Pepsi in his fridge has to be like sort of absolutely perfect in a row. But yeah, those kind of things. Like there's a Twitter account on called Oddly Satisfying or something, and it posts sort of like these things which can kind of also freak you out, where you see all these like perfect tiles in like a line or something, and then there's one that's just not quite right, and it's just like you look at it and it freaks you out.
Oh, that's a good one. I can identify with that. We've got just a rack with like with the kitchen utensils on, and it's got 5 spaces. So to me, it has to be 2, gap in the middle, 2. I mean, this is fascinating for the listeners.
Yeah, that stuff. Yeah.
How many times do you come down and your other half has put 1, so you've got 3 and a 1? It's just
yeah.
It's common, isn't it? I think this is common, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfectionism or something, isn't it? I don't
know.
Nicely put away.
Black ball question. This is to clear the colours, to win the frame. Black ball, what would you call your autobiography if you wrote one?
Oh, yeah, wow, I don't know. Somebody might steal it. I don't know, maybe like, I don't know, probably something like, I don't know, like The Journey or something, just because being a long journey, coming from Australia, it's like, it's not as straightforward as like being a snooker player, grew up just like in the UK. It's very kind of straightforward. For me, it was, so much of it like at the airports and that, and just like, long train journeys, not having a car here. And I don't know, maybe something like that. Or one of my favorite autobiographies from Nathan Buckley, who was like a legendary Collingwood Magpies player in the AFL back home, called his book All I Can Be. And it wasn't about sort of so much of how good you were or what you won. It was doing everything possible to be as good as you can be, because everyone has different levels of talent and and being able to win at the right moment. All that kind of stuff is kind of out of your control. All you can control is being as good as you can be, like practicing as much as you can, being as professional as you can, doing everything possible to get the most out of your talent. Maybe you might be more satisfied. Maybe some players or sports people are more satisfied by, making quarterfinals or last 16s or something, because they know they've got everything out of their talent. than someone who's maybe making semi-finals and finals and not getting the most out of their talent, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, great.
That's a good bloke. That's finally dispatched, I think, Lee, isn't it?
Yeah, that's done. That's done. He's won the frame.
Tucked away. And what we do as well, Neil, we tend to use the autobiography answer as almost a headline for this episode. So we'll put something perhaps around the journey in there. That would be quite a nice.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So that'll be our lead, kind of, the title of the episode. So, I mean, all that remains to say to you really is you've been so generous with your time and to stick with us and to help us to get this set up, and great person to get on with and to have this with. It's been really enjoyable. We were really excited. You're a top man and clearly a top man as well as a top player. So thanks very much is the last from me.
Yeah, thanks very much for coming on, Neil. You've been a great guest. As Michael said, really generous with your time. I wish you all the best for your upcoming season, but I wish you all the best, especially for Saturday.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. No, it's been really good. I really enjoyed myself, and yeah, I mean, I can talk about sort of sport and snooker and stuff all day. So yeah, no, it's great fun. Great to talk to two people who kind of really love the sport as well. It's really good, and yeah, loads of people sort of across like the podcasts and stuff getting snooker more out there. I think like Dave Hendon's done a great job with just getting things up and rolling, and just getting it out there, because I think what a lot of people do now is, like I do it myself, is that I love listening to like podcasts, and now, like, especially when I'm practicing, that's been like actually really helped me with when I'm doing solo practice to keep me interested, is that like I put like these little headphones in and I just listen to like a podcast about like whatever, and just helps sort of fill the time and stuff. And yeah, I'm sure many people will be doing the same with your guys, with your podcast. So yeah, that was awesome. This was really good. And was Joe Perry on? Was it Joe?
Joe's been on. Yeah, Joe's been on.
Yeah. So I gotta watch that one. So yeah, where do I go